Have you ever heard of Flapjack? It was a show that originally aired in 2007 on Cartoon Network as a series of 5 animated shorts, and later as a set of pilots. In 2008 it became a full series. It was one of my favorite shows when I was a kid, even though it could be creepy and even disgusting at times. The plot of the series mainly focused on the adventures of Flapjack, Captain Knuckles and Bubby in Stormalong Harbor, and trying to find a way to get to the Candied Island. There's something I need to tell you. It happened a week ago. The finale of the show was Flapjack and Knuckles turning to fish after they ate too much candy, and the creator and his son showing up in live action as main characters. However, there is an original finale that was way darker than the one I just mentioned. I was watching some videos on YouTube that day. I finished university a year ago, so I was relieved with the fact I won't need to study for exams anymore. I started working soon after that, but that day I had a day off so I could relax. While I was watching, I saw part of a Flapjack episode in the suggested videos from the side. Nostalgia hit me like a train. I clicked on it and watched as childhood memories flooded my brain. Then I decided to search for some Flapjack episodes on eBay. I found 7 discs on sale, each containing 6 episodes of one of my favorite shows. It wasn't expensive either, it was $20 in total. A few days later I heard the doorbell. I opened the door and found a box laying on my doorstep. I brought it inside and opened it up in my room. All the DVDs were in perfect condition, except for one. The 7th DVD seemed kinda strange. Its condition wasn't as good as the other 6. I saw something written on it with a black Sharpie marker. It read, Flapjack Original Finale. Now I was curious. I decided to watch that one first, so I booted up my laptop and put the DVD in. A menu popped up on my screen. There was a Windows movie file called TMMOF Original Finale.avi and a text file called readme.txt. I clicked on the text file first. It read, "This is a lost episode of The Marvelous Misadventures of Flapjack. This episode was created in 2010 in order to end the series. However, it was scrapped and replaced with Fish Out of Water. There's a reason why this episode was scrapped in the first place. The episode is way too dark and disturbing and not suitable for kids. The Cartoon Network executives were disgusted and outraged after viewing this episode and demanded a replacement. If you're a fan of this series, we have to tell you that this isn't a joke. Watch at your own risk." Even though I was a bit disturbed at this point, a morbid curiosity got the better of me, so I decided to play it. Maybe it was just a prank. Little did I know that they certainly weren't joking. The intro was normal. However, I noticed the song being lower pitched and the video having a little darker tint than usual. I brushed it off as I figured it was due to the episode not being fully complete. The title card showed Flapjack sitting on the dock with a sad expression on his face. Above him was the name of the episode. The episode was called Sweet Nightmare. I was weirded out at this point. I knew Flapjack was sometimes creepy, but this episode seemed to have an overall darker tone. Despite that, I kept watching. The episode started with Bubby sleeping near the dock as it was morning in Stormalong Harbor. The camera which the view to the inside of her mouth, where both Flapjack and Knuckles could be seen sleeping. A second later, Flapjack opened his eyes and smiled. It was another day in front of him. He turned to his captain and woke him up. Knuckles grunted as he opened his eyes. "Good morning, Captain. Ain't gonna be another amazing day today?" Flapjack said in his usual carefree manner. "I highly doubt. I bet I'm gonna end up being chased and beat up like I always do," Knuckles said in an annoyed tone. "Come on, Knuckles. I'm sure some candy's gonna cheer you up." The scene changed to Flapjack and Knuckles walking towards the candy barrel. When they got close, they saw Peppermint Larry crying in front of his shop, which was closed. "What's wrong, Peppermint Larry?" Flapjack asked. "Oh guys, it's horrible. I went bankrupt because someone got poisoned with expired candy. I lost everything, even my candy wife," Larry said. "Does that mean you can't give us any more candy?" Knuckles asked. "Yes, Knuckles, you guys will have to search for candy somewhere else," Larry replied. At that moment, Knuckles' expression changed to one of absolute rage. His face was contorted and it was obvious he was seeing red. Both Flapjack and Larry started backing off from the angered man. "There's no way we can get candy anywhere else. I can't stand being without candy." Knuckles screamed as he took a nearby rolling pin and hit Larry in the head with it. Larry fell to the ground, but Knuckles didn't let up. He kept hitting Larry in the head until his blood began splashing on Knuckles. After he was finished, the camera panned to now deceased Larry. The scene made me sick. Larry's glasses were broken, some of the glass stuck in his eyes, causing small trails of blood to come out. His nose was broken. Most of his teeth were gone, and his entire face was beaten and covered in blood. Flapjack looked in horror to what Knuckles just did. Knuckles still held the rolling pin, which was now covered in blood, and rushed towards the crowd of people. Flapjack ran behind him. "Captain? Please calm down. I'm sure we'll find another way to get candy." His pleas, however, fell on deaf ears, as Knuckles kept attacking the citizens who now ran for dear life. He managed to catch some of them and kill them the same way he killed Larry. Knuckles was now entirely covered in blood as he began running to the dock. Meanwhile, Bubby heard all the screaming and got closer to the port city. "What's going on there?" she wondered as she knew something was wrong. At that moment, however, Knuckles appeared on the dock. Bubby looked at him in confusion at first. A few seconds later, her expression turned to one of absolute horror. She didn't have time to question him as Knuckles threw the rolling pin, hitting Bubby in the forehead. The impact was so strong it broke Bubby's skull. She went pale and began sinking to the bottom of the sea. At that moment, Knuckles began shaking his head slowly. "What, Bubby? Bubby!" Flapjack ran to the edge of the dock and outstretched his hand. But to no avail, as Bubby already sank to the bottom of the ocean and died. Flapjack broke down, sobbing hysterically as Knuckles looked down to the sea in shock and horror. He finally realized what he did. "Flapjack, I'm so sorry." Knuckles wanted to comfort the boy, but he felt a handcuff on his hand. He turned and saw Officer Norm looking at him with a mixture of disgust and anger in his eyes. "Enough is enough, Knuckles. I got used to you stealing stuff, but you crossed the line this time. You're under arrest." The next scene showed Knuckles behind bars in the typical black and white prison uniform. The door of the room suddenly opened, revealing Flapjack coming, with his expression being the one of anger. Knuckles flinched at the sudden expression but recomposed himself as Flapjack was now right in front of him. The only thing separating them were the bars. "Hello, Knuckles." Knuckles was now surprised with the tone Flapjack spoke to him. It was much more serious and almost dark. "Hello, Flapjack. Why did you do it, Knuckles? We could have found another way to get candy. Thanks to you, several innocent people are dead along with my mother," Flapjack practically yelled. Knuckles was now entirely covered in blood as he began running to the dock. Meanwhile, Bubby heard all the screaming and got closer to the port city. "What's going on there?" she wondered as she knew something was wrong. At that moment, however, Knuckles appeared on the dock. Bubby looked at him in confusion at first. A few seconds later, her expression turned to one of absolute horror. She didn't have time to question him as Knuckles threw the rolling pin, hitting Bubby in the forehead. The impact was so strong it broke Bubby's skull. She went pale and began sinking to the bottom of the sea. At that moment, Knuckles began shaking his head slowly. "What, Bubby? Bubby!" Flapjack ran to the edge of the dock and outstretched his hand. But to no avail, as Bubby already sank to the bottom of the ocean and died. Flapjack broke down, sobbing hysterically as Knuckles looked down to the sea in shock and horror. He finally realized what he did. "Flapjack, I'm so sorry." Knuckles wanted to comfort the boy, but he felt a handcuff on his hand. He turned and saw Officer Norm looking at him with a mixture of disgust and anger in his eyes. "Enough is enough, Knuckles. I got used to you stealing stuff, but you crossed the line this time. You're under arrest." The next scene showed Knuckles behind bars in the typical black and white prison uniform. The door of the room suddenly opened, revealing Flapjack coming, with his expression being the one of anger. Knuckles flinched at the sudden expression but recomposed himself as Flapjack was now right in front of him. The only thing separating them were the bars. "Hello, Knuckles." Knuckles was now surprised with the tone Flapjack spoke to him. It was much more serious and almost dark. "Hello, Flapjack. Why did you do it, Knuckles? We could have found another way to get candy. Thanks to you, several innocent people are dead along with my mother. Flapjack practically yelled. I'm sorry, I don't know what got into me. I guess I was pissed because we couldn't get any more candy. I got irrational. But believe me when I tell you that I'm truly sorry. Flapjack said nothing. He was looking down at the floor. B-boy? Knuckles asked, worried. Don't boy me, Knuckles. In fact, you're not my captain anymore. All I wanted was to go on adventures, but whenever you took me to an adventure we would end up either hurt or almost killed. Thanks to you, Bubby is dead. I never knew my real parents, and she was the only family I ever had. She raised me and made me who I am today. I just wish I listened to her when she told me you would only get me into trouble. But Flapjack. What about the Candied Island? It's our dream to get there? I don't care about that anymore. In fact, I don't even care about candy anymore. Honestly, I wish I wasn't so naive to believe you were the greatest adventurer. You're nothing but a selfish and arrogant jerk who only cares about himself, which is the reason why you did what you did. You killed several innocent people just because you couldn't get candy. How pathetic. The tone in which Flapjack spoke frightened Knuckles. He never thought the boy had it in him. Flapjack, whatever you say right now, it won't change the fact you're here for life. Bubby wouldn't want me to be sad, so I will find a new purpose in life. One thing's for sure though. You won't be part of it. Knuckles got silent. What else was there to say? Flapjack felt the same way as he left the prison. A few minutes later the dock hag came in. Well, if it ain't good old Knuckles. You really went too far this time. She got him out of his cell and dragged him to an unknown room. When they got in, the camera showed a noose and a chair below it. Since you've committed a mass murder, I have no choice but to sentence you to death. Knuckles sighed. Just get this over with. I deserve it. It's not like I have something left to live for. The dock hag made him stand on a chair and put a noose around his neck. She got down and kicked the chair that Knuckles was standing on. Knuckles was struggling for a bit before he suffocated. Blood came out of his mouth as he now rocked back and forth. Dock hag had nothing but a look of disgust in her eyes. Serves you right, she uttered. The next scene showed it was nighttime. Flapjack walked over to the edge of the dock and sat on it. He looked down at the spot where Bubby would usually wait for him. He let a tear stream down his face as the camera showed the vast sea behind him. After a few seconds, the credits rolled. They were normal but silent. After that, the episode finally ended. I was in shock. What the hell were they thinking? Flapjack was a show airing on Cartoon Network, not on Adult Swim. I spent another half an hour thinking about what the hell did I just watch. Was this really how the show was supposed to end? I knew the creator wanted to end it with a shocking episode, but this is at least 100 steps too far. I had to ask Thurip Van Orman, the creator of the show, about this. I found out he had a Twitter account, so I wrote him in private explaining everything that happened. He replied to me an hour later. He said,
Dear Taylor, first of all, I'm sorry you had to see that. That episode was made by one of our former staff members who wanted to experiment. He wanted to see how would the public react if he ended the show on a dark note. Luckily, this version was never aired. I immediately fired him after I watched this episode with Cartoon Network executives and my colleagues. However, it seems like he managed to put that episode on a DVD, so I kindly ask you not to tell anyone about this. I don't want this getting out to the public. I don't want to think about that mistake ever again. Once again, I'm sorry. I wish you the best. Kind regards, Thurip Van Orman.
There's no way in hell I would allow anyone to see what I just saw, so I took the DVD and put it in a shelf. After that, I watched the other 6 DVDs to recover from the horrible episode one just watched. Flapjack still remains one of my favorite shows, but I never thought the original ending would be so dark. Then again, I know Thurip didn't support this, so that's a relief for me. I'm not sure if there are more DVDs containing this version of the finale. In case you find it, please don't watch it. I don't want you to go through the same thing I did. It's for your own good.